Hey, what's up guys, DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're doing an Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon deck profile. So I'm really excited for you guys because this deck is an amazing Pendulum deck that can basically summon out all sorts of really large dragons to your side of the field to just go in for game, which is a super effective thing for this deck to be able to do. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on your screen, become part of Notification Squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name in the description of a single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting your requested deck profile every single month you're a patron, along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon. This card is a great 2-of in this deck because it's a searcher that has the ability that during your end phase, you can destroy this card, and if you do, you get to add a Pendulum or monster with 1500 or less attack from your deck to your hand, which is a great effect to be able to search any Pendulum monster you want with this card that has less than 1500 attack. And when this card is on the field, it has the ability that this card battles an opponent's monster. Any battle damage this card inflicts to your opponent is doubled, which is really good. We then play 3 copies of Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon, which is oddly enough the best card in the entire deck, that has the ability that if an Odd Eyes card you control is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can special summon 1 Odd Eyes monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard, which is a crazy awesome effect, especially on a normal Pendulum monster. We then play 3 copies of Odd Eyes Persona Dragon. This card is a crazy good monster effect that has the ability that once per turn, quick effect, you can target 1 face-up monster on the field that was special summoned from the extra deck, and it has its effects negated until the end of this turn, which is a really good effect to be able to just give you an instant negate. We then play 3 copies of Odd Eyes Revolution Dragon, which through all that text, it has one really good effect that you can discard this card and pay 500 life points to add a level 8 or lower dragon pendulum monster from your deck to your hand. This card has a lot of text, but that is pretty much the summary of the big effect that you're going to be using on this card all the time. We then play a single copy of Odd Eyes Phantom Dragon, which is probably my favorite of all of the Odd Eyes monsters, because it has a really good effect. Its pendulum effect is that you once per turn, when attack is declared involving your face-up monster and an opponent's monster, if you have an Odd Eyes card in your other pendulum zone, then you can make that monster you control gain 1200 attack until the end of the battle phase, even if this card leaves the field. It also has a really good monster effect that when this pendulum summon card inflicts battle damage to your opponent by attacking, you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to the number of Odd Eyes cards in your pendulum zone times 1200. You can only affect this card once per turn. That's a lot of damage. You can go up to 2400 points of damage. We then play a single copy of Odd Eyes Phantasm Dragon. This card is a really good one-of that has the ability in the Pendulum Zone that you can discard 1 card to add 1 face-up dragon pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand, basically bypassing the Pendulum Zones where you have to summon out to your copies of your extra monster zone from the extra deck or to a copy of a Link Zone, which is really good to be able to just summon them out from the hand so you don't have to summon them to the Link Zones or into the extra monster zones. We then play a single copy of Odd Eyes Dissolver. Odd Eyes Dissolver is a good card because it's also a perform power card, so it's searchable, but its pendulum effect is really good that you get to fusion summon a dragon fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion materials to go into some really powerful cards like our copy of Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. We then play 3 copies of Perform Pal Skull Crobat Joker. I'm so glad this card is back at 3, and it's a really good searcher that's going to be the main normal summon of the deck, that when it's normal summoned, you can add a Perform Pal, Magician Pendulum, or Odd Eyes monster from your deck to your hand. And it's a really good effect that can search up to 3 different archetypes in a single card, but you only get to search 1 of them, which is really good to be able to search any of our Odd Eyes cards with this card's effect. We then play 3 copies of Supreme King Dragon Darkworm. Supreme King Dragon Darkworm has a really good graveyard effect that if this card is in the graveyard and you don't control any monsters, then you can special summon this card to your side of the field. And when this card is normally special summon, you get to add a Supreme King Gate Pendulum monster from your deck to your hand, which is either going to be our copy of Gate 0 or Gate Infinity, depending on which scales you actually need for the summons of your other monsters. The only downside is Gate Infinity, if you control a monster, you can't Pendulum summon at all, which is the only downside of this card, but it's a really good card to be able to put in your hand if you know you're going to get board wiped or you don't control a monster, to throw in the Pendulum scale to basically be able to Pendulum summon out any monster that's level 12 or lower, depending on the other Pendulum scale that you have. We then play a single copy of Perform Pal Odd Eye Synchron. This is basically here because it's a great tuner for the deck. We then play a single copy of Astrograph Sorcerer, which again, I am so excited that this card actually went back to 1. It's a great card for the deck because it's a level 7 and also works really well with Odd Eyes because it has the ability that if a card you control is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can special summon this card from your hand and then choose a monster from your graveyard, extra deck, or that's banished that was destroyed this turn and add a monster with the same name from your deck to your hand, which your Odd Eyes cards all get destroyed by card effects, which is really good to be able to just get an additional search and a special summon of Astrograph. We then play a single copy of Destrudo because Destrudo works very well in this deck to be able to just have an additional tuner to go in for level 7 synchro plays. And this card is an absolute crazy one of in this build. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Foolish Burial. Foolish Burial is here because we're basically going to be sending Dark Worm to the graveyard so we can get its effect to special summon itself back to our side of the field. Same thing with the Dragon Shrine. Dragon Shrine is basically just here to send Dark Worm to the graveyard so we can get an additional special summon of the Dark Worm to our side of the field so we can search out a copy of one of the 2 gates. We then play a single copy of Terraforming to search our copy of our Sky Iris, which is a really good field spell in this deck. We then play a single copy of Odd Eyes Fusion. This card is a crazy powerful fusion spell that lets us fusion summon a dragon fusion monster from our extra deck using monsters from our hand or our side of the field as material. And if our opponent controls 2 or more monsters, then and I don't control a monster, you don't control a monster, you can also use 2 Odd Eyes monsters from your extra deck as fusion materials, which is really good to be able to use if you don't control a monster and your opponent controls monsters. You can just immediately use like your copy of Meteor Burst and Absolute Dragon to go into Vortex Dragon. We then play a single copy of Pendulum Fusion. This card is a really neat card that lets us fusion summon a fusion monster from the extra deck using monsters that you control as fusion materials. And if you do have 2 cards in your Pendulum Zone, you can also use cards in your Pendulum Zone as fusion materials. So if you already Pendulum summon, you can then use this card to be able to get those cards out of the scales, put them into the extra deck, and give you a boss monster. We then play 2 copies of Duelist Alliance. Duelist Alliance is neat in the deck because it has the ability that if there is a card in the Pendulum Zone, you can add a Pendulum monster or a Pendulum spell or trap from your deck to your hands. This card is a great 2 of in the deck. I don't really feel like you need 3, but 2 is totally fine. We then play 3 copies of Spiral Flame Strike. Spiral Flame Strike is Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon's attack, and it is a great card in the deck because it has the ability that if you control an Odd Eyes card, you can target a card on the field and destroy it, or add one level 7 Odd Eyes monster from your deck to your hand, or 1 face-up level 7 Odd Eyes Pendulum monster from your extra deck to your hand, which is really good to be able to just get that search and get the exact card that you need to your hand. We then play 3 copies of single-handedly the best field spell that I've seen in a long time, and it's 3 copies of Sky Iris. This card is absolutely insane. It has the ability that your opponent cannot target your Magician, Perform Pal, or Odd Eyes cards in your Pendulum Zone with card effects, basically protecting your Pendulum scales, which is really good. And you can target 1 other face-up card you control and destroy it, and if you do, add 1 Odd Eyes card from your deck to your hand. It's a searcher every single turn while also protecting your Pendulum scales. That's absolutely crazy. It works with Arc Pendulum Dragon as well to give you a search and a special summon, which is just really good. We then play 3 copies of Summoner Art, but Summoner Art is here because I'm going to be searching out the copy of Arc Pendulum with this card. It's a really good card, and you have to get to your copy of Arc Pendulum. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon is a great card that basically is going to be the main card that you're going to be summoning out of the extra deck the most besides your Pendulum monsters. It's a really neat card because when this card is special summoned, you can target 1 face-up attack position monster your opponent controls and return it to the hand, giving you an instantaneous bounce while also having the ability that during either player's turn when a spell or trap card or another monster effect is activated, you can shuffle 1 face-up Pendulum monster from your extra deck into the deck and negate the activation if you do destroy that card, making it so that you don't keep all of your monsters in your extra deck. You can actually put them back into the deck while also getting rid of a card on your opponent's side of the field. We then play a single copy of Gatling Ghoul. Gatling Ghoul is pretty easy to summon in this deck. It just requires a Perform Pal monster and a Dark level 5 or higher monster. It's very good because it has the ability, if this card is fusion summoned, you can inflict 200 points of damage to your opponent for each card on the field. Then if this card is fusion summoned using a Pendulum monster as a material, you can destroy 1 card your opponent controls, and if you do inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack, which is pretty good. We then play a single copy of Stellar Wind Wolf. This card is really good because you can go into this card very, very easily with your copy of your Form Pal Odd Eyes Synchron plus any of your level 7 monsters. I really like this card. I'm taking it into the deck, and it's really, really good because it has the ability you can only control one of it, and it gains 300 attack each time your opponent, another monster's effect is activated. And then while the attack of this card is less than 4,000, it gains the attack. And then once per turn, if this card attack is 4,000 or higher, quick effect, you can shuffle both this card and all monsters your opponent controls into the deck. It's a really good card, very easy to summon, and you can summon it over and over again in this deck. We then play a single copy of Odd Eyes Meteor Burst Dragon because it's a really good card to summon in this deck, and it's just a really good Odd Eyes card. One copy of F.A. Dawn Dragster because it can negate spell effects, and this card is really, really good, spells and trap effects. One copy of Metaphys Horus that's very easy to summon this card, and you can actually get the Pendulum effect of this card off because it has the ability that your opponent chooses one monster they control and give control of it to you. You can't attack this turn with that card, which is really good because it's just an overall really powerful card in Odd Eyes because it's super easy to make. One copy of Absolute Dragon. This card is crazy good and going to be really easy to summon this deck, and you're going to be summoning this card all the time next to your copy of Vortex Dragon. And it has the ability that when any player's monster declares an attack, you can detach a material from this card to negate the attack. Then you can special summon an Odd Eyes monster from your hand or graveyard. And if this Exile Summon card is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon out an Odd Eyes monster from your extra deck, except for the copy of itself, which is going to be either the Meteor Dragon or the Meteor Burst or the copy of Vortex. We then play a single copy of Flare Metal. Flare Metal, it basically says every time your opponent breathes, they're going to take 500. So you got to play this card at 1 in the deck. It's very easy to make with your Odd Eyes monsters, and it's just an overall really good XZ card. We then play a single copy of Doom Rider. Doom Rider is really good because it gives us pops on the field by detaching 2 materials, basically being Dryden if you would put dragon monsters under it, which is always going to happen in this deck. So it's basically a Dryden, which is really, really good. One copy of Appaloosa because it can give you monster negates. One copy of the BLS Link because it's very easy to summon in this deck. You can change it out if you want to for the monks of the Tenyi card that points down 3, the link 3. This card is really good in the deck too, but it's a really good card to have those link arrows with the Tenyi monk if you're looking for another budget option. But the Blackluster Soldier link monster is so easy to summon to your side of the field, I just had to include it. We then play a single copy of IP Masquerena to spin stuff, or not spin stuff, but to go into our copy of Unicorn so we can actually spin stuff, and it's really good to go into Unicorn in this deck. And then we play a single copy of the Heretic Seal because we're playing so many dragons in the deck, and it's really, really easy to go into, and it gives us an additional spin just like our copy of Unicorn. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really fun deck to play with. I highly recommend if you've not played with Odd Eyes. It's a super fun Pendulum deck to be able to play around with because it's actually very cheap to pick up the main core of Odd Eyes. Like, it's not a really, really expensive Pendulum deck, which is really nice. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.